My name is Dennis Morris. I'm a photographer. Would you believe it? Am I in your home? In your record collection? Maybe a t-shirt? I could be on a poster in here. I'm a photographer. I'm an artist. That's what I am. I don't use the brush. I use a camera. That's my medium.
Internationally respected photographer Dennis Morris grew up in Dalston, East London. His career has taken him across the globe, but it was on the sun-kissed island of Jamaica where his story began.
One day my mother told me that we're going to go to England. And so for me, I said, oh, you know. And she said, yeah, you're going to go with your cousin Denver and cousin Lettuce. The plane landed in England. Door open, stepped off the plane, my mum, and I was going to say to my mum, oh, we arrived. And as I went to say to arrive, smoke came out my mind. They're on fire, they're on fire. Because it was winter. So this steam came out my mouth. So I'd never seen that before. So it's like, so I thought I was on fire. So I was like, oh, they're on fire. I remember one day we were watching TV, and it was me and my cousin Denver, cousin Lettuce, sitting in front of the television. We'd never seen television before, so we're sitting there glued to this thing, like, wow, man, what's this? You know what I mean? And then I think it was Watch It Mother. And so at one moment she said, so now, children, what's 2 and 2? So we all looked at each other and said, 4. She said, that's right. I said, them can't hear we, them can't hear we. So, you know, all these things was really strange for us because never seen TV before. From the moment I saw television, I was hooked on TV, and that's where I learned everything about England, is through television. So this is Covelston. At the time it was called Covelston Crescent Primary School. It's now called Covelston. And this is where I started off. There was a few black kids there. There were some black kids who were there who were born here before us, and you know what I mean? So they even looked at us as being strange because we had this funny patois accent. Everyone would sort of come up to you and touch your hair and, you know, stuff like that, you know, thinking it might rub off on you and all that kind of stuff. A lot of that was still going on. But it was all kind of, when you look back on it, it was really quite innocent, you know what I mean? I mean, we was as fascinated by them as they were by us. First day at school, I remember, you know, it was like bangers and mash. I mean, we looked at it and thinking, whoa, what's that? You know what I mean? In fact, it was so bad that my cousin Denver, he at one point, first day at school, disappeared. No one could find him. So we had the police searching for him, blah, blah, blah. Eventually he turned up. The story was, he said, boy, I'm said, go to school, man, and them give me this funny bangers and mash thing for eat. So I couldn't take it, so I just decided to try to find my way home, get some real food, and me get lost. Police find me, but them nice, you see, give me some biscuit and tea and them thing them else. And this side, like, there was things like, sometimes I remember they used to say to me, like, you know, Morris, you know, you step down, like, pull your socks up, boy, and I used to go down and, no, it's just that. Or they used to say to me, you've got a problem, or you've got a chip on your shoulder. I'm sort of looking, thinking, what are you talking? You know, all these things, you just never knew what was going on, you know. Kind of confused you sometimes. The first Sunday we went to church as a family, I'd met the vicar, and there was this kind of choir, small choir, and I was introduced to the vicar as a new member of the family and stuff, and he said, oh, you know, maybe one day Dennis might think about joining the choir. And I thought, well, you know, it could be cool. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think anything, you understand? But then it just became, well, yeah, you're going to join the choir.
The vicar of St. Mark's Church had a vision for his choir. They were to be dressed in the white collars and pinstripe trousers of the famous public school, Eton. In order to finance this, he placed an ad in the Times newspaper for a wealthy benefactor. Step forward Donald Patterson, a man who had made his fortune by creating revolutionary innovations in the world of photography. These two men would change Dennis's life forever.
Had it not been for the church, and had I not been in the choir, I would never have discovered photography, because Mr. Patterson, who was the benefactor of the church, he created a photographic club for the choir boys, and that's where I discovered photography. He saw my enthusiasm, and my potential and took me under his wings and basically taught me everything I knew about photography. We're basically rogues, really, you know, we're angels with dirty faces. I mean, all kinds of things used to go on. I needed to take us up to the West End to see a play, you understand? And we'd never been to the theatre before. And give you an idea of where we're coming from. So we went into this theatre, and lo and behold, in front of us were all these binoculars. You put money in, you know, to get the binoculars. And we couldn't believe that there was these things in front of his money. We were rattling. So throughout the play, all he could hear was doof, 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 as we were knocking the money boxes off. I mean, by the time the play was finished, we came back to the vicarage. We had the usual meeting, and the vicar said, "Well, boys, wasn't that wonderful?" We go, "Oh, yes, vicar, it's absolutely wonderful," you know what I mean? And then somewhere along the line, there was a phone call, and the vicar's like, "Excuse me, I'll get the phone." And he was on the phone, he's going, we could hear him going, "Really? My boys, they would never do that." "What? How many?" I said, "Really?" And then what he could hear then, next thing was all these boxes being thrown through the window. You know what I mean? Well, that particular picture was taken, I would be on the other side of the aisle in a church. And I would have just sneaked up my camera and just took some shots while the vicar wasn't looking. You know, it's the sort of thing I used to do. But Mr. Patterson always used to encourage me because, as I said, what I wanted to do was reportage photography. And reportage is about the moment, you know, sneaking shots, getting things without people being aware.
Tragically, Mr. Patterson would never see the success his young protege achieved.
The day I got my first front cover, I went to his office to see him, and I'd learned that he died. And he died in doing what he believed in, because basically what it was every summer, the 4 best behaved choir boys would be taken on a trip to Scotland. And when I was in a choir at that point, I was fortunate enough to make one of those trips for your summer holidays. And what I'd heard was they went for a stroll along one of the locks, and the boys had decided they wanted to go swimming. And they went into the lock to swim, and they got into difficulties. He went in to try and save them, and they all drowned. So, you know, he died for what he believed in.
After being introduced to the camera at just 9 years of age, Dennis became obsessed with photography, and his antics earned him the local nickname, Mad Dennis.
If it moved, I would take a picture of it. I had this reputation amongst the neighbourhood of being this completely nutty kid with a camera, you understand? You know, seriously, I would just take pictures all the time of anything and everybody, you understand? Capturing moments in time. That's what the essence of photography is about. Moments in time. We're near Shoreditch, like the back end of Petticoat Lane, Club Row. And what used to happen is a lot of these buildings were derelict. So sometimes the sound systems, you know, they used to have big blues dances there. And so the image was taken like early in the morning. It would have been on a Sunday morning. Sound system men within the neighborhood in those days were like heroes, local heroes, you know what I mean? Because they brought everything together, you know. And one of the guys in the photograph is a guy called Dennis Andreas, who grew up in Dalston, and he was always into boxing. And years later, he ended up becoming world champion.
The young boxer would not be the last person on their way to global success Dennis would photograph. An encounter with an up-and-coming Jamaican singer would be another turning point in his life.
I'd read that Bob Marley was coming over to do a tour of England. So I decided to go to the club called the Speakeasy Club in Oxford Street, just off Oxford Street, Great Margaret Street. So I went there, had my camera, and waited. And then eventually him and the Wailers turned up, you know. So I said, "Can I take a picture?" He said, "Yeah, man, come in," you know. So he invited me inside the club. So I went in the club, and, you know, they were setting up, and I'm just taking pictures and stuff, you know. I couldn't believe, you know, I mean, like acting like a pro photographer and stuff, you know what I mean, doing the whole works and stuff. And then somewhere along the line, during breaks, he warmed to me. And he said to me, what was England like, you know, for a young black kid? And I said, oh, you know, I was telling him, I said, well, what's Jamaica like, you know? And he was, you know, we was kind of swapping stories and stuff. And he said to me they had this tour to do and I wanted to come along. So I said, yeah. And in those days, there was no tour bus. It was like a transit van. Just got into the transit vans, like, you know, those 6-seater transit vans sat in there. And there's a very famous shot where you can see where Bob's looking back at me, you know. And the journey started. But one particular day they woke up and they wanted to play football, and they opened the curtain and they said, why not? So I said, snow. What do you mean snow? I said, yeah, snow. No, man. So Peter and Buddy said, boy, Babylon this snow. We have to leave Babylon, man. Them white thing and come from the heavens and I drop on the floor, man. Snow business. I said, no, it's snow. We go and play. Play what you deal with, man. Them Babylon this, man. Make go home, make go home. So they had this big debate. Peter and Buddy said, no, I'm have to go home. And tour ended. That was it. One of the most famous series of pictures I ever took of him was there's this series of him pulling his locks and stuff, and we were just sitting talking, and he just jumped up and said to me, Dennis, let me show you how to be free, Dennis. Just started and pulling his locks, you understand? But as a reportage photographer, understanding that technique, I was ready. I was ready for anything.
2 years after that first tour, Bob Marley returned to the UK, but this time he was becoming Bob Marley, the superstar.
I'll give an example. The Lyceum, it was packed. It was packed. It was so packed that it was, at one moment, people thought it was raining. What it was inside, because what it was the sweat, the body heat, reason hit the ceiling, came down as, you know, it was a jar, rain this, you know, the heavens had opened up. It was unbelievable. But Bob came back with a vengeance saying, this is it, I'm gonna take it, you know, you listen to me. And you know what, he did. And everybody wanted pictures of him prior to that gig, and I was the only one that had pictures of him prior to that gig. So suddenly I had a front cover with a Melody Maker and Enemy. He always told me that basically, you know what, you can do anything you want to do. No matter what they tell you at school, he said, you know, you can do it.
Dennis's self-belief was matched only by his persistence. Even not owning a phone would stop him from achieving his goals.
So when I used to go and see picture editors, I used to give them the telephone number of the phone box across the road. And I used to sleep in my room with the window open, you know, and listen out for the phone. And if it rang, I just used to run down and see whether pick up the phone. Dennis Morris, the games you got to play, you know, it's ways of getting around it, you understand? My career from that moment, everything just took off. Basically what happened was at the same time punk was happening, and Johnny Rotten, who was unknown to a lot of people, was a big reggae fan. I'd seen those pictures, but we again kind of grew up in the same area, because he kind of grew up in Finsbury Park, but he used to go to Hackney Technical College. Malcolm McLaren, who managed the band, he knew and saw me, said, yeah, a black guy with a punk band, that looks good, you know. So I was just given access. But again, when I was with him, I didn't care, because for me, there was just so many pictures going on, you understand? There was just, every day there was something new going on. Again, as I said, in a reportage style, it was perfect.
Many measure achievements by their finances or notoriety, but Dennis measures his success by his ability to inspire the next generation.
Yeah, this is nice. I do a lot of talks worldwide, as far as Australia. I've done talks on my work. It's not how good people tell you you are. You have to know how good you are in yourself. You understand? I get a lot of young black kids getting in touch with me saying, like, you know, because of me, why, you know, they picked up the camera. It inspires me. It makes me feel stronger. It makes me feel it's all been worthwhile. You know, it's a nice feeling.
One topic close to Dennis's heart is the plight of young people today, especially those vulnerable to negative influences.
If you do have something to offer in life, people will see that. And there are demons out there, and they will, if you're unfortunate, they will pick up on you, suck you clean, take you down the wrong road, and before you know it, you end up in prison or your life is over, you understand? Maybe by donating this work might possibly make a little bit of a difference. I think in the minds of Mr. Patterson and the vicar, you know, if you saved one, you've done the job. So I think for me, in some ways, if one person, male, female, black or white, comes and sees the pictures or look at what I'm saying and get something from it, then I think I've achieved something in that sense. Time is running and passing and passing and running and passing, so you all better get it right this time, because there might not be no next time.